Hello and welcome to the StarCommand podcast. I am David Seymour here with my good friend Alan Bragg, here to bring you all the sporting news and information in the world. If you could, before we get started, reach down and hit that like and subscribe button, share us with your friends and family, and help us get out there in the universe. All right, Alan, we've had an interesting week in sports. Um, we don't usually talk baseball, but you can't help but to mention that Juan Soto uh, signed a $765 million deal with the New York Mets, 15 years, 765. I think it has the potential to go as high as 780. Um, you have Bill Belicheck just signed a 5-year contract with the University of North Carolina to become their next head coach. Uh, I mean, we're gearing up for the NFL playoffs. We had the conference championship games last week for the NCAA. We have our playoff bracket set in college for our first 12-team playoff. I mean, it's an exciting time in sports right now.
Absolutely. Don't forget the Emirates Cup, the NBA in-season playoff tournaments going on. My Lakers didn't make it this year. They got knocked out, so they won't be repeating. But definitely a good time to be a sports fan. Yeah, you know that Juan Soto leaving New York has just allowed the Yankees to retool. I think they picked up two or three guys.
All
I
pitchers too.
yeah, all pitchers and good play, solid players. I can't think of their names offhand, but allowing them to retool while Juan Soto goes against the big bucks from the Mets. And Bill Belichick going to college. Who would have thunk that, right? Uh, he's going to
But
go to college.
I
Go to
actually think the move to college makes sense for the college game. I don't know why it makes sense for Bill Belichick yet, other than he felt like he wasn't going to get any offers from the NFL. But if you look at the college coaches over the last year that have left, right? Left head coaching jobs to go do something else. You had Nick Saban retire because he didn't want to do it anymore, which makes sense because he wasn't a good NFL coach. So when it became a business, he moved out. You had the Boston College coach that left right before the season started to go become the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator. Chip Kelly resigned from UCLA to go become Ohio State's. So I almost feel like going and getting coaches from the NFL, right, that are used to dealing with salary caps and free agency, because that's all the transfer portal and NIL is salary and free agency. So for North Carolina, it makes sense on a bunch of different fronts, right? All I've heard on ESPN and Fox Sports and everything is North Carolina football. Like they are dominating the headlines right now. So they've already won the hire.
they are the new Colorado for sure.
Right. Right. And so now you bring in a coach, and then they brought in Mike Lombardi too, who is a former NFL GM, to come in and kind of shape this thing and see what they can do. So it'll be interesting to see how it
Well,
all
my
plays
my
out.
question on it, I think it is great, and it's obviously it just is weird. But him going to
Mhm.
college, is he going to be there 3 years? I think if we get 3 years of Bill Belichick, I think it's an awesome, great thing for North Carolina, great hire. We're going to really see what he can do, bringing these kids in, getting them developed for the NFL. But I don't see that. I don't see Bill Belichick because he wants to coach in the NFL. And he wants his son to coach. I mean, it may all work out for North Carolina. They may get 2 years, a year and a half. But I think if we get 3 years of Bill Belichick in college and can see what he can really do, get his kids in there, a couple years, churn them, play solid defense, get a good offensive coordinator, and then yeah, see how he can handle the money and um, bring them up to the top of the ACC. It's going to be exciting. I just hope he stays. I just hope it's not he
Yeah.
comes in, gets is there a year, and then the off season after the first year, boom, he's gone.
Right.
That's what I don't want to see.
Well, and I don't know that we will see that. I think, I've been listening to a lot of the talking heads on this, and I think the NFL is done with Bill Belichick, right? We watched it the last hiring cycle. Really, the only true interest he had was from Atlanta. Atlanta didn't want to give him all the personnel control that he's used to having. and it's the same. It's going to be the same going forward, especially when you're talking about. I think he's 72 or 74, something like that. You know, how much longer is he really going to coach? I think the only thing he has left to accomplish in the NFL is getting the all-time wins record. He's 15 wins away from that. The way Bill Belichick coaches, that's 2 seasons. So you've got to turn your whole franchise over to a guy for 2 seasons. Whereas in college football, the coach has the final say in everything, right? They have complete organizational control. I was listening to, I think it was Dan Patrick this week, and he said the thing about it is these college coaches are the highest paid state employee of every state, right? At the major Dabo Sweeney's the highest paid state employee of the state of South Carolina,
No
you
doubt,
know,
yeah.
and so the power that they have based on that, and that's really what Bill is about, right? He's always been about power and control when it comes to things. So I think that's why the relationship with the Patriots started to fracture, right? Because Bob Kraft really loved Tom Brady. And we all know the rumors that, 2, 3 years before Tom Brady left, Bill Belichick was really kind of ready to move off of him and get Jimmy Garoppolo in there. Then comes the whole Jimmy Garoppolo trade to the 49ers. And, there's a lot of talk that he's
Did you
burned a
see
lot of bridges.
did you see Tom Brady? They had, Julian Edelman, Tom Brady, and Gronk on the show on like NFL Fox Sunday, and they were talking about what do you guys think? And Brady was funny because he said, "Yeah, you can see Bill like yeah, we you want to come try to play for us? We don't really need you, but we might find a spot for you, because that old hardcore like you're here, you may be able to help us. We may be able to find a spot for you,
Yeah,
And that's got to change. You got to tell these kids, you got to promise them the world. Like you're going to get this
right.
amount. Kids are actually getting wanting contracts with, I'm going to get this amount of snaps, and I'm going to start at this position. You're going to pay me this a month. You see where the kid from Florida hit the transfer portal because that's his contract was he wanted 45,000 a year. He wanted to be named starting outside linebacker. He wanted to be promised so many snaps, and he wanted that in a contract. And Florida said no, so he hit the transfer portal.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
it's
it's
the wild, wild west out
that's
there
what it's
right
coming
now in the
down to.
college football.
You're
Yeah,
going to start paying me monthly. You're going to promise me a certain amount of snaps and the starting position, or I'm out of here. And that just think that's how across the board, how many and you got like you mentioned, who was it? You said that Carolina's hiring to come in and kind of handle some of that stuff.
Mike Lombardi.
Michael Lombardi. Okay, yeah. So you're gonna these colleges are having to hire on GMs
Well,
to
and
get.
they're not and North Carolina's not the first school to hire a GM, right? Andrew Luck got hired a few weeks ago to be Stanford's GM for their football team, and so it's kind of been snowballing. There's a few colleges out there that have hired GMs, and so North Carolina is by far not the first one to do it, but now you're bringing in an NFL head coach that's used to dealing with salary cap and players' salary demands and all of that. And this may be the way that college football has to veer. All of these coordinators, because there's only 32 head coaching positions in the NFL, right? So to some of these coordinators that are in the NFL wanting to be head coaches, start looking at the pro or the college game and think, that's really just the minor leagues now because these kids are getting paid, they're getting contracts. Because, not what was it earlier this year, the Supreme Court ruled that um, colleges could actually start paying players themselves. It doesn't even have to come from a collective anymore, right? So now you start dealing with that. You start thinking maybe we bring in some of these NFL guys, their coordinators can't seem to scratch the surface of head coaching, bring them in, and you know, we've got pro guys dealing with pro athletes. So it's going to be interesting to see how this landscape unfolds. Everything with these players getting paid has kind of started to become, like we said, the wild, wild west. And so how does the NCAA wrangle this up something's going to have to happen here pretty quick because it's getting out of control. I saw Ryan Williams, the 17-year-old phenom from Alabama's entering the transfer portal. Be interesting to see where he ends up. So yeah, I mean, kids aren't staying. There is no staying power, which I think is funny that it's like that where these kids can just leave whenever they want because when they get to the next level, it's not like that at all. So what are we teaching these kids before they get into the next level? Because I mean, you can quit on your team if you'd like. We just had that happen on what was it, Sunday night football or yes, Thursday night football. I'm sorry. DeAndre Campbell of the 49ers just quit, refused to go back in the game, walked to the locker room, so
Yeah,
I don't know.
all because the guy that he's who he was brought in to play his position because of an injury finally comes back from an injury. Because you
Correct.
technically you didn't lose your spot. You're just
No, that was never your spot to
it
begin
was
with. You
never
were
your
filling
spot.
a
Right.
right.
And so a stud on defense, Dre Greenlaw comes back from injury, and it took a while. They tried to get him back out there. I think 3 weeks ago. It
Yeah,
took a long time to get him back up. So finally he's ready, and then you quit on. And in a game like that where it is a hard fought battle in the rain, very low scoring, not a touchdown scored the entire game,
right.
and and then Dre Greenlaw goes out, he can't finish the game. So you talk about being a valued player in that game. It's a defensive battle, a lot of run stopping. The guy that you're all upset and butthurt about ends up not being able to finish the game. So there you are to help your team, and you've decided already previously, no, man, I'm done. I'm good. I'm out of here. And now you'll never play for another NFL team, probably, because
Most
it didn't go
likely. I
over
mean,
well, as it
no.
shouldn't. But those NFL players were ripping everybody in the locker room. I mean, they just said, that's why he's going to get cut.
And who really wants to bring that into their locker room, right? If and that's why I wonder how this is going to work going forward in college football when you got guys like the guy from Florida, right? With the what is it? What did you say? I need this many snaps. I got to be named this starter. I need this much money.
I want 45K a month. I want to be this. Yeah, exactly. Starter. I
Right.
want the snaps.
Good luck getting drafted if that's your attitude, you
Right.
know?
Well, I
So,
think a lot of these kids are trying to cash in before. They're saying, you know what, I can make my money, and then the NFL can be a bonus.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's it's wild out there. Speaking of wild, the conference championship games, man, were absolutely wild. Arizona State was a 1 point favorite over Iowa State, and they just mopped the floor with like that game was never close.
Yeah, they did. They rolled them.
I don't. I think that's the first time that I ever watched Arizona State this season. And that running back Scatterbro, I know he's claiming he's the best running back in the country, and that's just not true. We know it's Ashton Gentry, but that kid is a beast. He
They
is
He is. He's and they're hot. They're very, they're a hot team. They are
right,
peaking at the right time. They're on a nice little win streak. Yeah,
which
they're
makes me worried about him for getting the first round bye. You know,
right.
it's going to be 2.5 weeks before they play a football game again. And when you have momentum like that, you want to just keep going. So kind
And
of
you're not
I wonder how much this bye is going to hurt them.
and you're not getting them in a home game, right? You're getting a bye and you're getting a team like Texas. You're going to get Texas or Clemson, who's going to travel well to a bowl game.
Right.
And and you're gonna be the underdog in that game, even though you got to buy, no matter what.
Right. Right. Most definitely.
Some
Yeah.
really good
So
matchups. One I hate is I hate that I really don't want to see. I know we talked about it prior. You got Tennessee beating Ohio State,
I
right?
think I think they can. I took them plus the 7.5. Um, but I do think that they can outright win that game. I think they're more physical. Brian Day's not great in big games, and he usually tries to play to his opponent's strength. We watched it in the Michigan game, right? They have the better wide receivers. Michigan's best cornerback is out with an injury for the rest of this season. You've got a great offensive line that knows how to pass protect, and all they did the whole game was try to out physical Michigan and they got beat. You know, you're going to play against a Tennessee team in the first round that has an outstanding defense, right? And their pass defense is great. Your wide receivers are going to get covered. Like I've watched Tennessee a couple of times this year, and they have an amazing secondary. And they know how to stop the run. You know, I really think Ohio State loses this game at home in Columbus, and the questions are going to start flying about Ryan Day because in the big moments, right, he's never made it out of the first round of the playoff. He's only beat Michigan one time, but he's lost the last four in a row. So it's not like lost a couple, won one, lost a couple. No, we won the first one, and everybody thought, oh yes, then the next Urban Meyer, we've got our next head coach, and then now we've reeled off four losses in a row to Michigan, and this year was the worst of all, right? Michigan's barely a 500 team, and they come into your house and just, I mean, completely shut you down. So if Michigan was able to shut down that offense, I just really feel like Tennessee is going to be able to shut them down.
I think no matter
But it,
what, we're in for a great showdown in the next round because that first Oregon Ohio State game was just that was one of the best college football games of the year.
yeah,
And I'd love to see that matchup again. But again, I'd love to see Tennessee, Oregon as well. So I think no matter what, we got whoever goes to play the Ducks is going to be a great matchup. And I agree. I think Tennessee can beat Ohio State. I also seen Tennessee lose. How my Razorbacks beat Tennessee, which is I still can't fathom how that happened. Our defense just decided to be just as elite as the volunteer defense that one
yeah.
Saturday night.
Well, we
Um,
are, but we also know that going to Fayetteville, man, that's just a weird and wonky place. Some weird stuff happens in Fayetteville, man.
can be. And then I think just probably the best game that I'm excited to see, and yours is probably Texas Clemson because you're a Texas fan, but the Notre Dame
Right.
Indiana. I mean,
I
that is the most interesting game, right? Because you got Indiana, who I think everyone's going to be rooting for, even though you got the old school big Notre Dame fans that love Notre Dame
right,
football. But here's Indiana. Why would you not root for Indiana to go do some damage in this playoff, right?
right.
You have to
Nice little
root.
Cinderella story.
You got to root for them. And then there's Notre Dame, who has played a light schedule, has found themselves. They made it just like predicted. They would be in there. I think people might have thought they would be able to get a bye. Well, they couldn't have got a bye. They had to be the five,
No,
right?
no. Yep.
So the five is the best they could have done. They ended up as a seven seed. But I'm just really excited to see that matchup. See if because Notre Dame's been playing great football, and
Yep.
Indiana's record says they've been playing great football. And if you've watched Indiana, they can score the football. They can score up and down the field. They put up a lot of points this year, and their defense is solid. So really excited about that match. It's my favorite matchup of the first round.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. I would say I'm probably more excited about that than the Texas Clemson game, and only because I really just feel like Texas is going to house Clemson. Um, we've watched them against decent opponents, and I mean they lost to Georgia 38-3. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
feel
that
like
was
that
like that was like
Clemson's a
that
little.
was like 9 moons ago, though.
Yeah, but then you look at them. Just let's look at them last week in the conference championship game. They were up like 28-7 on SMU and won the game 34-31. It just
Yeah, which
I don't
which
think
that comeback changed the perspective of the playoff, right?
correct.
SMU gets routed. There's no SMU in the playoff. It's row
Right,
tide.
right, exactly. And so, you know, I don't feel like that Clemson has the staying power to keep up with us. I really think it's going to be a rout.
Honestly, I hope not. I hope Clemson's done. I'm tired. I don't want to see that brand of football. I don't. They're
Yeah,
not that good.
they're right. They're not the Clemson of a few years ago where they were, playing in back-to-back national championship games and,
Right.
you know, the exciting team on the block to watch. They're just not that. And
Last thing I want to
so,
see is them somehow pull off a 21-19 game against Texas and then go and then they beat Arizona State because they got the fan support. They outnumber the Sun Devil fans. And then you got
right.
Clemson in the Final Four. and then you'd be like, well, you could have seen this happening, but God, do we really want to see a third game from Clemson in the playoffs? I don't. Let's go
I
Texas.
didn't. I was hoping SMU was going to win that game, and we weren't going to see a first game from Clemson.
Me too. Me too. I was rooting for SMU. I like their quarterback. What's that quarterback's name?
I think his last name's
Jennings. Jennings.
Jennings.
Jennings.
Man,
Yeah,
he's gonna be a Heisman candidate next year. He's
he's talented.
electrifying.
Yeah, he is.
He is. He is a lot of fun to watch. Um, but yeah, so you ended up predicting it right last week. You said only two of the new teams were going to win their conference. That Oregon Penn State game ended up being a great game. Um, I didn't I didn't start watching it right at the beginning. I had some other things to do, and I was a little bit in my feelings after that Georgia Texas game. We should have won that game. I mean, we make two of those. If we make one of those two field goals that we missed, we win the game. So, and there were a lot of other things that transpired, but we really should have won that game. Um, I was a little in my feelings afterwards, and I didn't watch the beginning of the game. And I was driving home from somewhere, and I heard the score update, and I was like, because at first Oregon was just routing them. And I was like, oh, maybe Penn State's going to come back. I hurried home and started watching the game, and then Penn State didn't make it back, but they played a hell of a game. It was a good game. I like them to probably really route SMU. They're just going to be more talented, bigger, more physical, and they're not going to let SMU come back like Clemson did. So
So you don't foresee a SMU Boise State round two game?
no, no, I don't foresee that at all.
Wouldn't that be something? I mean, that
That
right
would
there, though, if that does happen, and that would be a success, I think, for the 12 team playoff. And you can say,
right.
oh, we don't have the big schools in there, but the big schools are in there. And you just got to win, baby. Just right now, you just got to
Yeah.
win. And if we
Well,
somehow get some March Madness basketball Cinderella matchup and Sweet 16 of some, Loyola Chicago versus,
right.
somebody like SMU Boise State. I think that would be a huge success because it's going to show every smaller school, hey, you get the right year and
Yep.
you get in this thing and you have a
And
chance.
anything can happen when you get in,
Anything, and that's what it's all
you
about.
know. And that's the thing is we can sit here and talk like we know what's going on and on paper everything that we're saying looks great. But the one thing that I know and love about this sport is the paper doesn't ever tell the story, right? The story is told in between the white lines when the whistles blow after the flyover. It's who handles the pressure the best. We have that saying, pressure either makes diamonds or bursts pipes. So
Absolutely. And it's so true. You can do all the preparation, get them ready. And then when it comes time for that kickoff, it doesn't take but one big play early. And then momentum is a real thing, and it's
yes,
just, and once that momentum gets rolling, you hope you're on the side that it's rolling on.
yeah, yeah. Because if you're not, look, once it starts, it gets moving fast.
It does. And
And it's hard to switch it. It's
it is, you can
really
take it
hard to
back.
switch
You can take
momentum.
it back. But again, it can get out of hand. You can go to these games and all of a sudden, any one of these games, you could be, 14 nothing quick. And it's like, dang, didn't see that happening. And then the
Right.
game just gets out of hand.
Yeah, most definitely.
We've kind of talked about this before we jumped on, but there's one good game that we've kind of kept up with these teams all year. It's Army Navy.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm thinking Navy, they're -5. I feel pretty confident in that. I think Army's just a little bit better. They are at home. So if I was,
Navy's -5 or Army's -5?
Army's -5.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I thought I looked at it. I think they were actually like -7.5 earlier in the week. So there's been some money come in on Navy, apparently. But yeah, I look at their seasons, right? And they played similar records, right? Played similar teams. Um, they both played Notre Dame, they both played Tulane. Um, the Notre Dame game really shocked Navy's confidence. They were not the same team afterward. They ended up losing to Notre Dame, then losing to Rice, then getting blown out by Tulane. And Army took the loss to Notre Dame on the chin, and it was the same kind of loss. Got completely demolished and blown out, looked like they didn't belong on the same field as them. And but they turned it around and won out, including their conference championship game. So I'm a Navy man through and through. My dad did 22 and a half years, and so I'll be rooting for Navy, but I'm with you. I think Army takes this and probably takes it pretty handily. So this is kind of one of those games, right? Records get thrown out the window. This is for bragging rights throughout the whole country. There's
100%.
I guarantee you there's a group of people up in Pensacola. There's a naval air base up there, but they house all services for schooling, anything to do with avionics. And so, there's a bunch of Army Navy boys up there right now, probably talking a lot of trash to each other. And so this is one of those games where you just kind of throw out the bragging rights. That's all this is for, is bragging rights, and it'll be fun to watch.
Absolutely.
So man, we got a big slate of games this week. Buffalo's coming off of a crazy game against the Rams. That game was absolutely wild. Going to be taking on Detroit, who a Detroit team that can't afford to lose because Philadelphia is right on their tail for the number one seed. You've got Minnesota's right on their
Yeah.
tail
They're 11
for
and 1 and
the
they haven't locked up the division. They may
right.
finish second in the division. That's wild.
Crazy. So, Minnesota's got a Chicago team that's reeling right now. Uh, your Cowboys are an underdog to the Panthers.
Are
The
getting
Panthers are
points.
favored in their first game in over 2 years.
Yeah, Bryce Young's first game being favored as a pro.
Yeah. So my Commanders are going to the Bayou to play the Saints, and Marshawn Lattimore is going to make his first start for us against his former team, who's going to be without Derek Carr, without Chris Olave, um, without any of their starting receivers that they started the season with. Um, we got a lot of good games as teams make the playoff push. You got Green Bay's going up to Seattle. That ought to
Yeah,
be a good
lot of
game.
good games. Those 6.5 spreads are disappearing. Um,
Yeah, I had New England minus 6 or 6 or plus 6 or 6.5 against Arizona, and I had Chicago plus 6.5 against uh, Minnesota, and then I got scared and I bet that like early in the week. I was started thinking about it, got scared about the 6.5 with Chicago because they just looked atrocious last week against a beat up San Francisco team. I mean, their third string running back looked like Christian McCaffrey out there, and then he sprains his foot, and a dude they just signed from the practice squad comes out and picks up right where he left off, and uh it was just crazy to watch. I think Chicago's falling apart at the seams, and so I cashed that out and was going to change up some picks and noticed that New England was now only plus 5.5, and I wasn't willing to take that anymore.
that made it easy on you. Because
Yeah,
that's what that thing about that 6.5, man. It's like, it doesn't make sense, right? Because there was times where I was winning off of Carolina being plus 6.5, New England being plus 6.5. Like, there's no way, but you gotta go with the numbers sometimes, even though it
yeah,
makes no sense. But anyway, you mentioned first right off the jump, that Bills Rams game, man. That was a hell of a game. What a
man, it
freaking
was
game.
so fun to
It,
watch.
it was,
Like,
neither quarterback was sacked. There was no turnovers.
yeah,
Just a great game. And
not a whole lot of penalties either. I mean, there were a few. You're not going to go a whole
yeah.
game without a penalty, but it wasn't just like flags flying constantly, which was great.
And the Rams are getting hot at the right time. Boy, you talk about just a team that keeps winning and might find their way in the playoffs, and I wouldn't want to play
And
them.
yeah, that's a scary team if they make it into the playoffs. Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay leading that thing, man,
Yeah,
you
because
know,
Puka just continues to just get better and be just, I mean, Cooper
it,
Kupp didn't have a catch. in that game. And I mean, that X line was low scoring. There was no touchdowns
Right.
because the ball wasn't being, thrown up and down the field all over the place. But Puka just, man, he's a stud. He just makes play after play. And they're just solid. And then talked about that Detroit situation, where they just have to keep rolling. I mean, they're having the
Yeah.
best year like in Detroit Lion Bank can remember, and you might not win the division because Minnesota
Right.
just is continuing to stack wins as well. And
Most
who's Minnesota
definitely.
got this week?
Minnesota has Chicago this week, so
Minnesota got Chicago. That's right.
might as
Man,
well.
you would assume they
And
keep
for this
winning.
Detroit Buffalo game, I'm not picking the winner of that game,
No,
but
absolutely not.
I am hammering the over
A lot
because
of
both
points.
these
So
teams can.
if somebody gets to 30, you probably get there. So it's 54 and a half. So you're looking at 30, 27, you cover. 28,
Yeah,
24, 28, 24, you don't cover.
yeah, but I
You
look
got
at
to get
that
to
game
30.
I look at that game last week, and you know, I feel like Bills Rams and Bills Lions almost feels like the same game. Like if you look at the Rams defense and the Lions defense, if you look at the uh Bills defense or the Rams offense and the Lions offense, they're
Absolutely.
very similar in
They're going to be
operation
playing
and
inside in a dome. Everybody's going to be running as fast as they can.
right.
Uh,
No weather to speak of. The only thing that worries me a little bit about it is I was listening to Colin Cowherd yesterday, and apparently Buffalo wasn't able to practice for a couple of days this week because there's like 3,000 feet of snow on top of everything in Buffalo.
Interesting. Oh
Yeah,
God, people, and I get why the Buffalo players play there. That's who their contracts with, but people choose to live there.
yeah, they
It's
do.
wild.
I've got a buddy of mine that's from Buffalo that lives here now, and I can understand why. Anytime we get to this time of season, it feels like every year there's always one or two games up in Buffalo where you're watching all the fans,
Shoveling
shovel the
snow for 20,
snow and
25
help
bucks an
the
hour.
players get their cars out. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, of all of the places in the whole entire world to live,
Right. Man,
this
I
is
was,
where you've chosen.
we had talked, I was in South Carolina for the past 2 weeks, and there was a few mornings, think 3 or 4 mornings when I would have to go out and defrost my windshield. And I'm like, that's too much.
Yeah.
Just that little thin layer of ice on my windshield was like, no, I don't like this
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
I don't want
No.
no part. I don't want to keep going north and then start compacting that. No way.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And, the crazy thing is that throughout my life, I've lived all kinds of different places, and I've got a lot of family that lives in Ohio, spent a lot of time out there, which is not quite Buffalo, right? Buffalo's its own game, but just I have always hated the cold my entire life. It just, man, the wintertime is gloomy up there. It's depressing. It's so cold you can't feel nothing. I don't know.
Absolutely. It hits different. Now, I will
Yeah,
say this, and I think you'll agree, ain't nothing better than sitting on the couch watching a snow game on
no,
TV.
oh, I love it.
I'm for
See,
that.
that's as long as I don't have to be in it, right?
Absolutely. That
Um,
might be that might be the best, watching a snow game from your warm couch.
I played Pee Wee League football when I lived in the mountains of Virginia, right? So I've played a couple of snow games when I was knee high to a grasshopper, right? And there is something about getting hit in the cold that will make you rethink all of your life's decisions. Yeah.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Like, when I watch these games in like the Buffalo or like last year, what was it that it wasn't even snowing, but that Kansas City Miami playoff game where it was like negative
Oh,
27 degrees and, Pat Mahomes' helmet got cracked because it was so cold and frozen. You know, like I
fans
don't
had
care
toes
how,
amputated after the game,
right. Like,
fingers,
and
frostbite.
there's still guys showing up out there with no shirts on with, writing and painting on their chest. Like, what is wrong with you, man?
And paid. Not
You
only
need
that,
to
but
be admitted and have your
probably
mental
paid
health
about
checked.
600 bucks for those tickets to do that.
Right.
No doubt. Well,
You had to mortgage your home to
hit that playoff game and go suffer. So Dallas, I think having us plus points, I think we win that game. That was a tough loss last week. As you know,
It
we both
was.
talked you into something on that one, my bad. Um, but getting plus three, oh, we're the better team. They're on my picks. Cleveland, I mean, Cleveland could upset Kansas City because we know that's probably going to be a very close game. It's a
Yeah.
proof's in the pudding. It's going to come down
I
to a
do
kick
like
at the end.
I do like Cleveland plus 4. I don't think I think Kansas City's won maybe 2 games all year by more than 3 points. Um, again, listening to Cowherd yesterday, uh, Cleveland's the number 3 scoring offense since Jameis Winston took over, and the number 2 passing offense since Jameis Winston took over. So, and yeah, I mean, Kansas City was up big on Carolina a couple weeks ago and had to win the game on a last minute field goal. I don't believe that they're engaged in any aspect of the regular season. They've essentially locked up home field advantage throughout, and uh, and they've locked up their division already. So, I mean, I think there's still a path for Buffalo to get home field advantage, but it's going to take a lot of help from Kansas City. I think Kansas City is probably going to take it easy this week. They play 3 games in the next 11 days. So uh,
Oh wow, that's what
it's,
that ended on. That game ended on Christmas, huh?
yeah. Yeah, they play Sunday, then they play next Saturday, and then they play Christmas.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree on that one. Let's see. Miami Houston's an interesting game.
Yeah, I
Both
was I was
both
debating
teams
taking
have to
Miami
win.
plus 3.
Yeah, I agree. I think you take the plus points with Miami because I think again Miami continues to get a little bit better with Tua each
Yeah,
week. They're getting better, and Houston just seems to be you don't know what you're going to get each week. They're gonna
right.
come, they're gonna come out and have a Mixon will get 2 touchdowns, Stroud will throw for 2, or they're going to come out and get 1 touchdown, couple turnovers. Stroud gets sacked 6 times. Um, and even though it's at home, that means Tyreek Hill's running on a fast track, Jalen Waddle's running on a fast track, Mostert and Achane are running on
Yeah,
fast tracks. They got just as
and
many
really,
weapons.
yeah, and really, a lot of people have been talking about the CJ Stroud slump, which I don't know that it's a CJ Stroud slump as much as it is the offensive line hasn't been as good this year. He's dealt with numerous injuries at the wide receiver and skill position plays, right? And the other half of it is I don't think the defense has played as well this year as they had last year. So I think there's a mix here because you were talking about Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So I really the more and more I think about it, more and more I'm convinced myself that Miami plus 3 is the play here, and I think they end up winning it outright. Honestly,
I agree. Not even going to talk about Jets and Jags. Washington, New Orleans. I completely agree. I forgot Carr was out. I didn't put that on my ticket, but I wish I would have now because I think that's a great spot for Washington. I don't like the 7.5. I wish it was 7.
yeah.
Because you can easily
Well,
see
they're
how
going
a
to have
game.
either Spencer Rattler or I can't think of what their other quarterback's name is that's been there a couple of years. I think he got suspended for using PEDs last year. The only reason I even remember that he exists. But I just Marquez Valdez Scantling's really the only weapon other than Alvin Kamara. So there's just not a whole lot to worry about. You don't have anybody that's going to really be able to distribute the ball. I can really see this being a double digit win for Washington is the reason I was able to take them 7.5.
I like it. I'm definitely going to make a modification and add that to my because I forgot about the Derek Carr injury.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think I might do
Baltimore.
the same thing. I think I might go back and take that hook off of there. That hook has killed me a bunch this season, man.
Yeah, I'm
A
telling you that it's
bunch.
crazy. You get that thing at 7, you at least push, but that seven and a
Yeah.
half, man, they if they win that game, 23-14, right? No, that's too much. It'd be 23-16, something like
Yeah.
23-16, right? And they dominate, let's just say they dominated, but it was 23, 8 going into the last 2 minutes and what New Orleans gets some touchdown goes for 2 for some reason, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it wasn't that close. Um, Baltimore, New York. Baltimore will win this game. Here's another NFC opponent that Lamar Jackson's going against, but 16.5 points is a lot. That's a lot. you know.
Yeah, I just stayed away from the game. I think I put in one ticket that was just all people that to win, no point spreads, just money
Right.
line, and I took them to win the game because they will
Right.
do that. But I am staying all the way away from that point spread. It's
I tried to
dangerous when you
do
get into those.
I added them to my only ticket that I have on NFL. I added Baltimore money line, and I think it went from my profit went from at the time it was like 1,860 to like 1,880, and I said no, that's not worth $20.
No, no. I do like Lamar to probably have a big game, which sucks because
I sure hope so, man.
he's the quarterback of the fantasy team that I'm playing in the first round of the playoffs.
All braggers, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm hoping
I think
Tyreek.
I think the warmongers are going to have to come through this week. Look, we've had two big monster weeks back to back. Thank you to what's his name, Isaac Garendo from the San
And Sam
Francisco
Darnold.
49ers, and Sam Darnold, boy, he balled out. So
Yeah,
put
I'm
up
rooting.
almost 150 points in a league that's hard to get to
Yeah,
120.
120 is a great week, absolutely. And you are coming in hot. Those big weeks got you in the playoffs. You're 7 seed. I'm the 2 seed. You had a bad week. You had a bad game with Debo on Thursday night. That was kind of
I did.
unfortunate with the rain. If it's not monsoon that first half, that'd have been a lot better because they showed that they were trying to get him the ball, and they
Yeah,
would have.
because he's been complaining. He's been complaining that he's not getting the ball,
Right,
especially with everybody else out. So they were trying to
right.
force feed him, trying to
It
get
was
him
just
going.
too wet.
Yeah,
I mean, it was bad conditions. You had to run that ball in the first half. Um, and I hope Sam Darnold comes back to earth, and I hope we kind of flip. I hope that Lamar just goes out to New York and balls out. I hope the weather's okay. Looks like it's going to be sunny, 37 degrees. But I really hoping for Lamar to get a good start for me, that 1 o'clock game on Sunday, and get me off to a good start.
and I'd really
Um,
like to see Lamar have like a 5 interception day. Um,
that ain't
you know,
happening. Hey, we're both again. I don't want to compete on prayers this week. I don't want it to get confusing for the man upstairs, but that ain't gonna happen.
yeah,
But it'll be exciting. We got hope CeeDee Lamb could go down and do something. I didn't, this is playoff time. It's winner
it is.
advance, but also in our league, we got the most points at the end of the year wins the most money. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping I don't want to squeak by. I want a lot of points. I want a
yeah,
150 like you got this year.
yeah.
Last week.
I need one of those too. All my guys are back from their bye week, so I've got Joe Mixon and Brian Robinson Jr. in the lineup. They should
Well,
have big
if
weeks.
I am gonna lose, I want to lose 160 to 150. That way I'm maxing out my points and I'm racing for that top spot in points. And then you can go, if I'm gonna lose to somebody, let you go get the championship, and then I'll just go get the points money. But
Yeah,
I can't have no 80 point, 90 point outputs. I've gotta start gaining. I'm down 100 points, I think, in the 100, or yeah, I think 100 points. I've got to, in the next 3 weeks, I've got to basically, average 33 points more than the leader. So
everybody else.
I've got to get, it's between three of us. It's between three guys
Yeah,
going for that number one spot. And then it's the 8 people in the playoffs, soon to be 4 people after Monday Night Football.
right, right. So, Alan, let's get ready to wrap this thing up for the day. I know we're not making any college picks this week. Really, the Army Navy game is the only big game that's out there. Everything else is, as we were talking before, you got to be looking at the incarnate words and the South Dakota
Yeah,
states and
I got a random college ticket out there, but I wouldn't even feel good. It's one of those, hey, I may win. If I do, I will definitely brag about it. But
right.
but I
Who?
just only thing I was able to look back was scheduling, and just because I don't know anything about these teams. But there's a
Right.
lot of good records. There's out of 3 of the 5 games going off today, you got 11-2, 11-2 records going against each other. And then you got the Army Navy game, and then the South Alabama, somebody is like 6-6. So there's some really good
Yeah.
records out there playing.
But who do you like in the NFL this week?
All right, so NFL is Cowboys +3 against the Panthers. Dolphins +3 against the Texans. Cardinals -5.5 against the Patriots. Packers -2.5 against the Seahawks, and the Vikings just to win. But I will be adding the Commanders in on that. So it'd be Cowboys +3, Dolphins +3, Cardinals -5.5, Packers -2.5, Vikings to win, and then Saints -7.5.
Washington -7.5.
I mean, yes, Washington -7. Whoa, listen, yes, Washington -7.5.
All right. So I like it. I do. There were a couple of those games that I was really looking at, including the Packers -2.5 and the Dolphins +3. So my picks, I've got Washington -7.5. I've already explained, right? Saints are just so beat up. I mean, we probably won't make a field goal because there's something going on with, there's some kind of voodoo that this special teams coordinator that took over as the head coach of the Saints has put out because nobody can make a field goal against them. So hopefully it doesn't come down to a game-winning field goal. I do like Cincinnati -5. They're playing a really bad Tennessee team. Um, I just they're going to be way too much firepower for for Tennessee to hang with. Um, I I like Denver -4 over Indianapolis. I just don't think Anthony Richardson's really great at football. Um, and that Denver defense is a monster. And I've got Detroit and Buffalo over 54.5. Just two high powered offenses against two decent defenses. Neither defense is bad, but they're not all world either. So I feel like it's going to be a high scoring game. And then I like the Cleveland Browns plus the 4 points. Kansas City's last 5 games have been decided by 3 points or less. So I don't see that changing. So that's Washington -7.5, Cincinnati -5, Denver -4, Detroit over 54.5, and Cleveland +4.
Nice. I love that we both, we're adamant football fans. We watch these games, we talk about them, and our tickets are completely different, but not the
Yeah,
same game. It's not like we're picking against, you
right,
didn't, the only game different was you were talking about earlier was the Patriots Cardinals, possibly
right.
taking the Patriots, and you didn't now. But other than that, it's literally we're not going against each other. So, man,
No.
combine those tickets,
And the only reason I was thinking about taking the Patriots is because
the
of
six and a half.
the right. And when the 6.5 was gone, I was out on
100%.
it.
Well, so my $100 ticket, this is not this is my original five-teamer without the Saints was $100 will pay 16. So let's go. I'm gonna go get that 1600 this week. Um,
Nice.
that way I can get another big cash out. I finally made it back to Florida after my big win and when I was leaving, remember?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
and I won that ticket. So the last, ticket that I put out there, guys, was the I can't remember how many teams was on it. It was like an eight-teamer for two grand, and I cashed out early because I got scared because the Panthers decided to play some football against the Bucks,
Yeah.
and I was leaving Florida, and once I left Florida, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get online. I couldn't, so I had cashed out as soon as I was like in Yulee, Florida. I cashed out for 1,300. So. And finally got last night when I got home, I was able to withdraw that money and put it back in my bank account. So that's what it's all
Yeah.
about, man. Making the bets so you can withdraw that money.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So hopefully we can both do withdrawing some money this week. I know I
Absolutely.
could use it. So um but with that, man, again, if you guys would like, subscribe, share it with your family, friends, help us to help get us out there in the universe for all to hear. And we appreciate those of you that do listen. And with that, Star Command is out.